Greetings to everyone. My name is Badri Narayanan Gopalakrishnan. I am the founder of INFISUM modeling in the US, based in Seattle, and I am also an affiliate faculty member with University of Washington, Seattle. And I'm very delighted to be part of this second web-based conference organized by Professor Dr. Badri. Please accept my best wishes, greetings, and gratitude for involving me in this conference. So the topic of this conference is computational systems for health and sustainability. I'm going to discuss about various new developments that are coming up in the areas of healthcare and sustainability, not just healthcare but also various sectors and having an impact on health. I'm going to talk based on my experience and my work with different startups and organizations and some of my research in this area. So firstly, let me start discussing about the food sector. So in the food sector, let it be vegetables or fruits or other food products. A major concern is about how to ensure the food is safe. That is one concern, food safety. Another concern is how to make sure that the food that we are eating is not lost. We are not losing food or we are not wasting food. There are two types of two different types of wastage of food. One is loss and another is waste. So loss of food is basically something that happens in the supply chain. For example, currently because of the COVID crisis, many farmers in India and other countries are losing food because of the lack of logistics. There is not sufficient arrangement of logistics and transportation, so they are not able to sell their produce, and then the produce perishes because it's all perishable product. So that is basically food losses. There is a second concept which is called food waste, and food waste is basically when we go to a restaurant and we don't eat food properly and waste it, and that is actually waste of food. So waste of food is happening at the demand side, and loss of food losses, they happen at the supply side. So why am I talking about this? Because it has a relationship with both the topics we are discussing, health and sustainability. Let me first explain how this relates to health. It relates to health because food safety is important. So if you are supplying, if you are buying something from the market and you just consume it because it appears fresh and it's good, but actually there is some kind of supply side problem that happens because of transportation, delay in transportation, or lack of maintenance of temperature and humidity for storage. The food may become poisonous or unfit to be eaten by the time you consume it. So that has a profound impact on your health. So that is one aspect. And the second aspect, why sustainability? Because obviously when you are losing food or you are wasting food, that is, what does it do? It creates excessive emissions, because if you are producing and eating, whatever you are producing, if that is eaten, then there is no wastage of energy and emissions. But when they are being when the production is not being completely utilized, then there is a wastage of food products. So that leads to issues in terms of sustainability, and of course there are more dimensions to sustainability. One dimension is environmental aspect that I just mentioned. Second dimension is economic aspect. So if you are wasting food, then there are a lot of poor kids, poor people who are not able to consume the food, so they are affected. So they are the inequality between the poor and rich in terms of consumption of food can increase, because the wasted food, if that was handled properly, that could have reached to the poor people. So that is the poverty inequality angle of that. And there is also a social angle, which is which probably is related to health, because sustainability and health are also related, because sustainability has these three dimensions: environmental, economic, and social. And under social, health is also one of them, because only if people are healthy, the society can be healthy. So the social dimension of sustainability includes health. So in this way, the food sector is very important when it comes to health and sustainability. So now I motivated the problems, right? The first problem is food safety. Second problem is the food losses and food wastage. So these are certain problems that exist. Now go a little deeper into these problems. The first problem is when why is the food lost through the supply chain? First, maybe because there is, like what is happening today in COVID situation, there is not sufficient transportation or logistics or maybe storage facilities. That could be first thing. Second thing could be that the producer may be producing high quality products, but by the time the produce reaches the retailer, the shops, the transportation people involved in transportation may not take as much care as the producer takes care of the produce. So in some of our studies that I conducted recently, came to know that the producers really want to supply high quality products, but their responsibility is done after producing the product. So they are not concerned about the transportation part of it and logistics part of it and even the retail selling part of it. So the retailers have to maintain quality, so they come up with some methods, some chemicals and other techniques to make the food appear fresh. But when the consumer purchases it, it is not guaranteed that the food is what it is claimed to be. So the food may be claimed to be organic, the food may be claimed to be GMO free, non-GMO, non-genetically modified. It may have been claimed to be produced in a certain environment. Some of it may be true in terms of production, but just that does not mean that the food is fresh and the food is not spoiled and so on. So this is where there is a role for new technologies and computational systems. So if imagine a situation where the consumer can look at the QR code or on the barcode on the produce, and then just by scanning that they can see the entire path of the product, maybe some videos, some parameters, what was the temperature, what was the humidity, how long has it traveled, was it produced organically. All this information can be stored there in the cloud. That is one possibility. And for that you need cloud, you need Internet of Things to sensor, to see how the temperature has been, how the humidity has been, and then input all those data into the cloud, and then some data analytics to actually exactly match the numbers with particular QR code. All these things can be done, and of course on the back end the industries can do a lot of data analytics to understand what are the consumer preferences, what are the producer capabilities, and all these things. So that is one aspect. The second aspect is even the producers and the retailers and the transportation specialists, they're all well intentioned. They don't want to they definitely don't want to cheat people, and for the large part they just want to sincerely provide good quality food. What is missing there then? And then again the missing point there is the farmer is very nice, he wants to sell good stuff. The transportation guy is good, he just wants to take the produce from point A to point B carefully. But then the transportation guy may be lagging the scientific aspects of it, like how long can it stay, how long can the food stay unspoiled, in what conditions, what should be the temperature, what should be the humidity, and all these things, and what is which food is organic, which is not organic, how not to mix them. So all these things the transportation people may not pay a lot of attention. Again, the retailers may pay attention to some of them and may not pay attention to some of them. So what would be really ideal is to make sure that all of these are coordinated. The producer, the transportation, logistics, and the retailer, they have some kind of coordination happening, and that coordination will ensure that there is minimal food loss, the loss of food, because if the transportation guys take enough attention, pay enough attention, take care of the food that is produced and that they are transporting, they are going to be and if they also tracked, if the temperature and humidity is tracked while transportation is happening, the farmer would know what is happening to the food, and the retailer would also know what is happening to it. So there's something wrong, the temperature is not good enough, humidity is not good enough, or if it is some mixing up is happening, they can immediately alert the transportation guy, and the transportation guy can stop somewhere and fix the problem, fix the temperature, humidity, and then focus on driving safe. So this is a wonderful possibility. So basically we are giving visibility or giving sensing what is happening to the supply chain, and informing the different stakeholders. So in this way you can minimize the supply side losses. So these are all some very interesting applications of software packages, disruptive technologies like blockchain, IoT, Internet of Things, cloud services, big data analytics. All these things can be combined to deliver this kind of product. So there are a lot of statistics. I don't want to get into the details, but there are a lot of statistics that say that a lot of people die or get sick because of food poisoning, or food not being food safety not being given priority. This is despite all the certifications we have, despite all the checks and balances we have, rules and regulations we have all over the world. I'm not talking about one or two countries, but all over the world. So in this context, this kind of technology based surveillance and monitoring of what is happening can go a long way to promote the health of people. And of course there is also a discussion about the very cause of coronavirus. There is some controversy. Some people say that it happened in the wet market, which has some very special kind of food that was sold, and through some animals the virus spread. And this is not the first time. It was also discussed about when the last pandemic happened, SARS or Ebola. So whenever these things happen, MERS, there has been some some kind of mixing up between animals in the food. They are even named after some animals. Swine flu, H1N1 is called swine flu. Another, we also had avian flu. So all these things have happened, and maybe some of these things could have been avoided if there is enough checks and balances on different points of movements of all these food products. So I think this is very powerful, this kind of technology for both health and sustainability, as I mentioned. So this is one example I want to mention, and I also want to tell that this is all not just ideas, but actually this is being experimented and practically implemented by many companies in the world. Many startups have been working on this. For example, even the big companies and have been working on this as well. For example, Nestle has come up with a collaboration with Amazon, AWS, Amazon Web Services, to monitor the coffee bean that they are producing, coffee bean to coffee, to basically keep track of the laborers who are involved in it. So there should be fair trade. For that also there is some monitoring, and the quality of the coffee bean. So there are, when you think about any product, food product, textiles, any product you are consuming, there are two aspects. One is the product standards. So when you wear a shirt, you want to make sure that it feels good to you, it has original materials. If it claims it has Giza cotton, it actually has Giza cotton. If it claims it has Puma cotton, it has Puma cotton. So these are the things that you worry about. That is, those are called product standards, the standards of the product itself. Like if you buy something, by looking at it, by doing some laboratory tests, if you are an expert, if you are a somebody who really knows in and out about that stuff, just by looking at it, feeling it, you can say whether that has all the product standards that you are looking for. The second aspect is process standards. How was it made? For example, I'm a vegetarian. So if I look at bread that is given to me, just by looking at it, examining it, I'm going to be satisfied about the product standards. Okay, this is bread, it doesn't have any meat, I'm happy. However, if I go a little deeper and say, where was this bread made? Was there a meat that was sitting next to it? If that is the case, I don't want to eat it. I know that meat will not be mixed up with this because they may have some distance, but I still don't feel comfortable that this was even close to meat. So for example, if I go to a restaurant, if they cook both meat and vegetarian products, I may hesitate. I may say that, okay, I know that if I do a laboratory test of my vegetarian food, it won't have any meat in it, it won't have any meat, but that is product standards, but the process standards is not met, because there is the same person who is touching the meat is also touching this, even though they are using gloves and they are washing their hands and so on, but I may not be very comfortable. So that is one example. Another example could be that I want to make sure that the workers are treated well. The same shirt that I wear can come from, with the same quality of product, can come from a factory where the workers were treated very well, or they can come from a factory where the workers were ill treated. And I don't want to consume that product which was made by ill treating the workers. So these things, what is called as sweat, these are called sweatshops. So sweat free products or fair trade products. So all these things right now they operate based on some certifications. Certifications are good. The certifying organizations are very reliable, they are very honest, they are very diligent. However, the world is so huge, the industries are so many, it is extremely difficult for them to implement their standards every single time. So there would be some lapses, there would be some some things that they would be missing. For example, I used to work in an apparel factory long before I did my PhD, and I have seen when I went to some of our suppliers, I would see that there would be child labor. Children would be working, and when I asked them why is this the case, I would say, oh, we would not when the buyers, when the people who implement the standards, or the buyers, the people, the representatives from the US and EU, when they come, at that time they will make sure that there is not child labor, and whenever they will somehow make sure that whenever inspections are done, they are careful. But when during the regular times, they will still be employing child labor and so on. So I've seen this in my own eyes, and I was very sad. And these things happen a lot, and standardization agencies can only go so much, can only go so far to help these things. I'm not saying that they shouldn't exist; they should be there, and they have a role to play. But their role can become even more scientific and easier and tractable and effective with some of these new technologies. Again, computational systems, blockchain, IoT, and all these things can be used to track the entire supply chain, what is happening at every point of supply chain, and that can ensure the process standards. So coming back to the difference I was telling you, product standards and process standards, these can be very helpful for process standards, and process standards are typically very important when it comes to sustainability. So and also to some extent health. I mean, as far as health is concerned, product standards are good enough. If your if vegetable or fruit or whatever you are eating has good product parameters, that all the scientific parameters are fine, then you are okay. It doesn't matter how it was produced and so on. But if you are a conscientious person, you will want to know how it was produced. Similarly, if you also take this to the economy level or society level, the country level, then what you are saying is, if so if you are able to keep track of what is happening through the supply chain in terms of labor and other aspects, pollution and so on, then you are able to, the consumers are more empowered, more well informed. So people like me would now be able to make a more well informed and data backed choice. Again, I don't have to assume that okay, US Department of Agriculture has certified this to be organic, so this is organic and so on. I don't have to assume that. I don't have to just go by the declaration that is given there, but I can scan the QR code, I can see the entire supply chain, what it went through and so on. So so I will then purchase only the products that are going through this system, so that I'm very happy that okay, I am contributing to sustainability. So consumers like me will be empowered, which means that more and more people can follow this kind of sustainability friendly consumption patterns. So this can add up to economy level increase in sustainability, and obviously health can be guaranteed by good product standards. So in summary, I have been talking about various aspects of particularly food industry when it comes to health, food safety, and food losses, food waste and so on, and also to some extent the other industries like textile, apparel, any industry you can take, when it comes to the sustainability aspect, how people are treated, what are the conditions in which workers exist, what are the income provided to the workers, are they fairly treated, these kind of things. So I think these are all possible with all these new technologies, computational systems and so on, and a lot of analytics can be done on the behavior of companies in a friendly way towards health and sustainability. That also can happen through this. The governments can incentivize them using all these big data analytics that is created. So I think that's the main topic I want to discuss. And finally, I also wanted to mention about a company that I'm involved with. I'm on the board of directors. It's called Transparent Path, and this company is a special purpose company. It is kind of somewhere between non-profit and for-profit company in the sense that they have a special purpose of ensuring sustainability and food safety, reducing food losses, and so on. So that is one way in which I got introduced to some of these concepts from a practical perspective, although theoretically I knew all these things and I've been doing research on it. These practical insights I got from working with the leadership of Transparent Path has been very helpful for me. And I would also, as a matter of practical consideration, because now I've been talking about all these ideas and technologies and so on. So now one may ask a question as to, okay, I understand all this. If I'm passionate in this, what can I do? What is my next step? It depends on who you are. Let me first address the students. If you're a student, whatever you study, I don't care what exactly you study. You may be a art student, liberal arts student, you may be a science student, you may be an engineering student, it doesn't matter. Whatever you're doing, I would really advise you to work with, identify companies like this. There are many startups which I'm very heartened to see many startups in India, in US, in many parts of the world, which start with a purpose. They don't start just for making profits, but they start with a special purpose to serve the society, serve the downtrodden and so on, and in the process they want to make profits eventually. So I would really suggest the students to engage their free time in these companies, because these companies also may not have much funding in the beginning, in the early stages. So it's very important for these students to work with these companies which are into healthcare, sustainability, and technology, using technology, because technology cannot be avoided. You cannot say that I'm not an engineering student, so I don't I cannot learn about technology. But there are different dimensions of technology. So as a liberal, if you're a liberal arts student, if you're an economic student, if you're a English student or something, you can apply your own skills to understand the high level meanings of technology. Why does it matter for this purpose? All these things can be thought of logically. Think about it logically, and that way you can contribute to this movement of sustainability and better health across the world. If you're a professional already established for many years, again I would suggest that you can volunteer some of your time working with this kind of organizations, so you both learn and contribute to these initiatives. There are many of the startups, non-profit organizations, many institutions like this which you can collaborate with. In fact, in India, even the government has opened up venues for being mentors. Experienced professionals can become mentors on things like Atal Innovation Mission by Niti Aayog and so on. Like in India, there exists, and all over the world such things exist, so they can avail these things for the professionals. And for academics, I would really suggest that they pursue research on these areas, but let the research not be purely theoretical, but let it be informed by these industry players and non-profits who are on the ground, and the governments. I think that would be really valuable. So with that, I conclude this discussion on the computational systems and new technologies for health and sustainability. I wish the second web conference a grand success, just like the first one. And I again thank you. I thank Professor Sridhar Seshadri for inviting me again. And thank you very much. Greetings, everyone. I'm delighted to hear that Dr. Sridhar Seshadri has organized another web conference and I'm extremely delighted to be part of that, and my best wishes in a grand success of this event as well. And this is a very innovative and very effective way of conducting conferences, and very futuristic, and I'm sure this will be the norm in the near future, whereas Sbyte Technologies has been pioneering in this aspect. So I'm going to talk briefly about education, which is one of the topics of this conference. So the digital transformation in education, and what is going to be more effective for the next generation in terms of education. So I will talk based on a few of my recent studies with many other co-authors. The first one is about in the context of ongoing pandemic, we did a field survey or primary survey with a questionnaire for many students all over the country who are doing their undergraduate education in a variety of subjects. And this was about their willingness to do online examination and e-learning and so on. Particularly when it comes to online examination, the perception of the students is that they are not ready, in the sense that there is a lot of fear and psychological factors involved in this. They have not done it before, so they are extremely worried about how effective will it be and so on. And the students, and this is not a common, this is not a like a same response from all the students, but some of them have been positive and some of them have been negative. Students who are positive are the ones who have very good access to internet and technologies, computers and so on. And the students who generally are apprehensive are the ones who don't have access, students in the rural areas and so on. And also their socio-economic background is quite important. So this study gave us a sense of how the digital transformation in education can face a lot of short-term hurdles in implementation. However, when we take into account the problems faced by the students, particularly from the poor backgrounds, from poor socio-economic conditions, and rural areas where access to modern technologies are relatively difficult, although things are improving over time. I think once their concerns are taken into account and they are given access to technologies, when the access to technologies becomes more prominent to all the parts of country, then there could be a very positive effect of digital transformation in education. So this inference that I just mentioned can be made from the response of students who have good access to internet and technologies, who are from good socio-economic backgrounds. So that is mainly the reason why I am able to say this. Secondly, we did another study on the instructor's perspective. What do the people who are teaching and examination investigators, what do they think about it? And from that study, we particularly focused on Mumbai and the Maharashtra state, and there our finding was that they are also equally apprehensive, particularly because they have not done it before. So it's about a first time situation, and there are three hurdles they see. The first is the health difficulty that we are facing now. So people are worried about the students who may get sick, and also the faculty who may get affected by this in terms of health. Secondly, it's about the technological aspects, how is it going to happen, and what is the infrastructure needed, and so on. And thirdly, it's a psychological factor, the fear factor and psychological factor. Like, since we have not done it before, how is it going to work this time, and so on. So again, as you can imagine, these are also relatively short-term concerns, and in the longer term, medium term, these can be alleviated by the authorities and the governments and universities and so on. So from these two studies, we can make an inference that in the short term there are going to be many hurdles, but in the long term there could be gains of digital transformation in education. Then we did a third study. Actually, it was done long before the COVID. It was done in last year. In this study, we looked at the new learning methods and how do they have an impact on the students and their performance and so on. How do the students perceive about them even before the crisis. So in this study, we found that students today, the next gen students, are not so much interested in just memorizing some concepts and writing based on that, but they want practical relevance, facts and figures, those kind of more impactful ways of learning. So I think that is an important aspect to consider when it comes to transformations in learning for the next generation. So that was one major conclusion. So finally, we did one more study again in the last year, and that was actually for the rural parts of India, and we conducted a primary survey in a village in Uttar Pradesh. And in this study, we looked at the state of schools. How are the schools now, and how do they impart education? How are the students? Particularly, this is mainly about primary and middle and high school, the school-going children, while the other three studies were mainly about the college and higher education. So, at a school level, at a elementary, middle, high school level, the students are, and particularly in the rural areas, students are really poor, and the facilities are also poor. There are not many teachers, and the schools are used for multiple purposes. They may be used for marriages and many other events as well. So given all this, it's highly complicated and difficult to come up with any digital transformation strategy there. But we did discuss about some digital technologies like using YouTube and other online websites for training, and having some equipment, recording equipment, and also playing equipment like CD players and so on in the school, to make sure that the kids get international exposure and so on. And again, the challenges for these is, one challenge is the infrastructure investment. Second is preserving these things, because these schools are generally very open, and there are issues like thefts, and as I mentioned before, multiple events happening in these places. So these equipments and so on are exposed to many other things. So it's very difficult to safeguard the investments made also. So however, we did find that the students are very open, and also the teachers are open to these new technologies, and there is already a penetration of technologies there, and this will be a good learning tool for them. And I think if you address these issues of safety, security of equipment, and safeguarding from thefts and so on, again, digital transformation can be a major boon in rural education as well. So these are the different dimensions of how to think about digital transformation in education sector, both rural and urban, both school education and higher college, university education. And so as I think a common thread of all these studies that I mentioned is that there is an issue of short-term adjustment, which is very prominent, both for the teachers, for the students, instructors, examiners, for all of them. And there is also clear recognition by all the stakeholders that in the long term this can be a very positive thing, and particularly for getting international exposure and learning from others, not keeping the learning to confine with just the teacher and the local students, but also making it global and national and so on. So this is how I see the technological changes in education going forward. So I'm sure there are many other papers and speakers who are going to talk more in more detail and more specific technical aspects on this topic. And I conclude by saying that all these are really important. Coming up with technological solution is extremely important for facing this issue. So thank you so much again, and I wish the program all success. Thank you. Greetings everyone. Respected Professor Sridhar Seshadri, my best wishes for this wonderful web conference by Sbyte Technologies on covering a wide range of topics broadly on health, public health and healthcare, and technological aspects of that. So now that we have been going through this pandemic and trying to fight a pandemic in many different ways, one based on healthcare solutions like vaccination, cure for the diseases, particularly COVID, and comorbidities, how to make sure that people do not suffer because of the comorbidities, and also other like things that are not directly related to medical aspects but within healthcare, such as telemedicine. How do we help patients from a remote environment using digital technologies? Have video conferencing based appointments, or have text-based screening and advice of patients. These are all happening, and also getting outside opinion or second or third opinion on treatments being done, let's say in a remote place where you don't have many experienced experts. You can use new technologies, cloud and so on, to communicate with experts who live in bigger cities or even foreign countries, and get real-time advice from them to improve, to conduct appropriate treatments. So that also can come under telehealth, telemedicine services, and also coming up with various other types of technological and innovative solutions for addressing the various gaps in healthcare. I think one major gap that is coming up, if we have another major outbreak, another major wave of the pandemic, is the scarcity or lack of healthcare professionals. This is something one of the famous doctors had talked about recently. Dr. Reddy, the founder of Narayana Hridayalaya. So he had suggested that there would be this shortage of healthcare professionals. So there has to be some kind of, I think some kind of technological solution can help in this regard. We already have this telemedicine, telehealth solutions, and if you can make it in a bigger way, wherein not only within the country but also globally, anyone can support, any health professional can support patients who are undergoing severe conditions. I think that is something one can be prepared with. So, and also another thing is, oxygen supplies, ventilators, and so on. There is a need for more innovation. For example, this oxygen cylinder has been pretty constraining. You cannot have it for a long time. It's very expensive, and then it get emptied very soon. So one can think about oxygen concentrators, how to develop them, design them locally at a low cost, because right now we are importing from other countries. So these are all some innovations that where technologies can play an important role in healthcare solutions, particularly in the context of COVID. And there are also various other aspects apart from COVID, apart from the infectious diseases. There is also huge implications for mental health, how people are affected because of this whole pandemic, mentally getting into depression and so on. So there also we need some counseling, extensive counseling, and people should get into yoga, meditation, these kind of things, so they can keep their calm and think about solutions rather than the problems. So that is also very important, and again technology can play an important role there. There are very famous apps, mobile applications and websites which are guiding people in along these lines in terms of meditation and so on. And a lot of yoga classes are now happening online. So all these things together, I think the best of healthcare industry, healthcare innovation solutions, and digital technologies, they are helping each other, complementing each other to come out of this crisis that we are all facing. And in this context, I am very happy to hear this conference being arranged for this noble intention.
Watch this video, like this video, subscribe to this channel to watch many more videos like these of great personalities. Share this video with your friends to subscribe to this channel.